Learn about the world. Korea. South Korea is a country in East Asia that occupies the southern portion of the Korean peninsula, located between the Yellow Sea to the west and the Korea Strait to the south. South Korea shares a land border with North Korea to the north. It shares maritime borders with China and Japan. Basic information. Full name, Republic of Korea. Type of government, republic with power shared between the president and the legislature. ISO, KR, Core. Country domain, KR. Time zone, +9 o'clock. Phone code, +82. Capital, Seoul. Major cities, Daejeon, Incheon, Gwangju, Busan, Daegu. Largest cities in South Korea by population, Busan, Incheon, Daegu, Daejeon, Gwangju, Suwon, Ulsan. Changwon, Gyeong, Sungnam, Bucheon, Cheongju, Ansan, Jeonju, Cheonan, Namyangju, Hwaseong, Anyang. Area, 99,678 square kilometers. Terrain, mountains, dense forests divided by deep and narrow valleys. Cropped plains along the coast, especially in the west and south. The highest mountain in Korea, Halasan on Jeju Island, 1,950 meters. Climate, temperate, 4 distinct seasons and heavy rainfall in summer. Population, 51,663,003 people, May 2025. Main ethnicity, Korean. Religion, Buddhist 46%, Protestant 39%, Catholic 13%, Confucian 1% and others 1%. Language, Korean. Resources, coal, tungsten, iron ore, limestone, kaolinite and graphite. Agricultural products, rice, wheat, barley, vegetables, cattle, pigs, chickens, milk, eggs, fish. Industries, electronics, telecommunications, automobile manufacturing, chemicals, shipbuilding, steel. Exports, commodities, semiconductors, petrochemicals, automobile parts, ships, wireless communication equipment, flat panel displays. Steel, electronics, plastics, computers. Exports partners, China, USA, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Japan. Imports, commodities, crude oil products, petroleum, semiconductors, natural gas, coal, steel. Computers, wireless communication equipment, automobiles, fine chemicals, textiles. Imports partners, China, Japan, USA, Germany, Saudi Arabia. Currency, won, KRW. South Korea maintains diplomatic relations with 191 countries. The country has also been a member of the United Nations since 1991, when it became a member state at the same time as North Korea. South Korea is a member of the United Nations, WTO, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, Development Assistance Committee, DAC, ASEAN+3, East Asia Summit, EAS, and G20. It is also a founding member of Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, and the East Asia Summit. On January 1, 2007, South Korean Foreign Minister Ban Ki-moon assumed the post of UN Secretary-General, serving in that post until December 31, 2016. The country held the 2023 South Korea Pacific Islands Summit and the 2024 South Korea Africa Summit, and is also promoting the Korea Central Asia Summit to deepen cooperation with developing countries. South Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy is a comprehensive strategy that encompasses the economic and security spheres of Indo-Pacific countries. Announcing the strategy, the country said, while strengthening the rules-based international order, which is conducive to a stable and prosperous Indo-Pacific, we will work towards a regional order that enables a diverse set of nations to cooperate and prosper together. As of late 2021, states of GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Israel, Japan, Malaysia, Mercosur, Southern Common Market, Mercado Común del Sur, Mexico, Mongolia, RCEP, Asian 10 countries, Korea, China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, India, Russia, BIPA, SACU, South Asia Cooperation Union, and South Korea. China, Japan are in negotiations about the FTA with South Korea. On the 22nd of November 2023, South Korea and the United Kingdom opened up negotiations for a new free trade agreement to replace the current continuity trade agreement. Active South Korean Chinese people-to-people contacts have been encouraged. Academics, journalists and particularly families divided between South Korea and the People's Republic of China, PRC, were able to exchange visits freely in the late 1980s. On the 23rd of August 1992, the government of the Republic of China, by then only in control of the island of Taiwan and a few outlying areas, severed diplomatic relations with South Korea in advance of its announcement of formal recognition of the People's Republic of China based in Beijing. The Yonhap News said in 2002 that since then relations between the two governments have been in a rut. The relation between South Korea and Japan has both political conflicts and economic intimacies. Examples of conflicts include the East Sea naming dispute, visits by successive Japanese prime ministers to the Yasukuni Shrine, and the disputed ownership of Dokdo of the island Korea. Mongolia and Korea established diplomatic relations on March 26, 1990. South Korea has an embassy in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Mongolia has an embassy in Seoul. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties on 3 March 1949, the relationship between the Philippines and South Korea has flourished. The Philippines was one of the first countries that extended diplomatic recognition to South Korea. The relationship between these two Sinosphere countries is usually described as from enemies to friends. Despite the two states' hostile positions in the Vietnam War and South Korean war crimes and atrocities in the Vietnam War, which still causes lingering controversies between the two states, both countries have still become each other's most important trade partner throughout their relationship. According to a 2013 BBC World Service poll, 3% of South Koreans view North Korea's influence positively, with 91% expressing a negative view. A 2015 government-sponsored poll revealed that 41% of South Koreans consider North Korea to be an enemy, with negative views being more prevalent among younger respondents. Still, in a 2017 poll, 58% of South Koreans said they don't expect another war to break out with North Korea. In the 1980s, South Korean President Roh Tae-woo's Nordpolitik and Mikhail Gorbachev's New Thinking were both attempts to reverse their nation's recent histories. Gorbachev had signaled Soviet interest in improving relations with all countries in the Asia-Pacific region, including South Korea, as explained in his July 1986 Vladivostok and August 1988 Krasnoyarsk speeches. The establishment of diplomatic relations between the United Kingdom and South Korea began on 18 January 1949. The relations between the United States and South Korea have greatly strengthened under the Lee Myung-bak administration. At the 2009 G20 London Summit, U.S. President Barack Obama called South Korea one of America's closest allies and greatest friends. On 9 October 2024, South Korean Defense Minister Kim Yong-yeon emphasized the need for stronger joint military drills with the U.S. to counter North Korean threats and address concerns about growing North Korea-Russia military ties. Human rights in South Korea are codified in the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, which compiles the legal rights of its citizens. These rights are protected by the Constitution and include amendments and national referendum. These rights have evolved significantly from the days of military dictatorship to the current state as a constitutional democracy with free and fair elections for the presidency and the members of the National Assembly. South Korean democracy has legally protected rights for political, civil and socio-economic individuals, although there are limitations and even discrimination against certain groups. These groups are certified as at-risk groups and comprise women, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender persons, LGBT, and racial and ethnic minorities such as refugees and migrants. According to the Freedom in the World Index, South Korea is considered to have a high human rights record in the category for human freedom in civil and political rights, with 83 points out of the 100 points in 2024. In the Constitution, the citizens are given the rights of freedom of speech, press, petition and assembly for its nationals. The National Security Act criminalizes speech in support of communism or North Korea. Though it is unevenly enforced and prosecutions decline every year, there are still cases brought annually. In the Constitution of Republic of Korea, there are rights and freedoms for its citizens. For instance, freedom of speech or press. Hence, there is no official censorship in place. The national security law makes it a crime to express sympathies with North Korea, and though it is not consistently enforced, there are over 100 people imprisoned under it annually. A play about the Yodok political prison camp in North Korea has come under significant pressure from authorities to tone down its criticism, and the producers have allegedly been threatened with prosecution under the security law. South Korea is one of the most ethnically homogeneous countries in the world, and it is difficult for outsiders to be fully accepted. The large population of workers from Southeast Asia, over half of whom are estimated to be in the country illegally, face considerable discrimination both in and out of the workplace. Just as the DPRK considers South Koreans as fellow citizens, North Koreans are considered citizens of the Republic of Korea, and are automatically given South Korean citizenship and passports upon arrival into ROK territory. Military service is mandatory for nearly all South Korean men. According to Amnesty International, there were 758 conscientious objectors, mostly Jehovah's Witnesses, detained for refusing to perform their military service as of June 2004. In 2018, a constitutional court ruling found that the government could not imprison conscientious objectors, but had to provide alternative forms of service for them. The law prohibits arbitrary arrest and detention, and the government generally observes these prohibitions. However, the National Security Act grants the authorities broad powers to detain, arrest, and imprison persons who commit acts the government views as intended to endanger the security of the state. Critics continued to call for reform or abolishment of the law, contending that its provisions did not define prohibited activity clearly. The law prohibits all forms of trafficking in persons. However, there were reports that persons were trafficked to, from, through, and within the country. Women from Russia, other countries of the former Soviet Union, China, Mongolia, the Philippines, and other Southeast Asian countries were trafficked to the country for sexual exploitation and domestic servitude. They were recruited personally or answered advertisements and were flown to Korea, often with entertainer or tourist visas. In some instances, once these visa recipients arrived in the country, employers illegally held victims' passports. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, LGBTQ, people in South Korea face prejudice, discrimination, and other barriers to social inclusion not experienced by non-LGBTQ residents. Though there has been social improvements since the late 2010s. Same-sex intercourse is legal for civilians in South Korea, but in the military, same-sex intercourse among soldiers is a crime. And all able-bodied men must complete about 1.5 years of military service under the conscript system. Transportation in South Korea is provided by extensive networks of railways, highways, bus routes, ferry services and air routes that traverse the country. South Korea is the third country in the world to operate a maglev train, which was an automatically run people mover at Incheon International Airport. Korea Train Express began service in April 2004 as Korea's first high-speed service. Intercity services are provided by ITX Saemail and Mugunghwa-ho. ITX Saemail generally stops less than Mugunghwa-ho. They stop in all stations and seat reservation is not available. On routes where KTX operates, air travel significantly declined with fewer passengers choosing to fly and airlines offering fewer flights. South Korea's 6 largest cities, Seoul, Busan, Daegu, Gwangju, Daejeon and Incheon, all have subway systems. Seoul's subway system is the oldest system in the country, with the Seoul Station, Cheongyangni section of Line 1 opening in 1974. The first tram line in Seoul started operation between Seodaemun and Cheongyangni in December 1898. The network was expanded to cover the whole downtown area, Yeonggi-gu and Jongno-gu districts, as well as surrounding neighborhoods, including Cheongyangni in the east, Mapo-gu in the west, and Noryangjin across the Han River to the south. Virtually all towns in South Korea of all sizes are served by regional bus service. Regional routes are classified as Gosok bus or Seoi bus, with Gosok buses operating over the longer distances and making the fewest, if any, stops en route. Seoi buses typically operate over shorter distances, are somewhat slower, and make more stops. It is possible to reach another city by intercity buses. From Seoul, the place is Express Bus Terminal. The subway station is served by Seoul Subway Lines 3, 7 and 9. Within cities and towns, 2 types of city bus operate in general, JW Asok and Dosihyang or Ipsok. Both types of bus often serve the same routes, make the same, or fewer, stops and operate on similar frequencies, but JW Asok buses are more expensive and offer comfortable seating, while Dosihyang buses are cheaper and have fewer and less comfortable seats. Many small cities and towns do not have JW Asok buses, and their buses are officially called Nonjeokon, rural area, bus. The local buses in Seoul and other cities are categorized by colors. The blue buses are trunk lines that cross the entire city. The green ones are circulator, short-run lines that connect passengers with subway or railway stations. And the red buses are express lines go out of the city to nearby suburbs. Incheon International Airport is served by an extensive network of high-speed buses from all parts of the country. Bus fares vary depending on the type of bus, the method of payment, and the age of the passenger. Passengers pay the right fare by placing their transportation card, which they can fill with money prior, on a card terminal. Among the various types, mainly classified according to distance traveled, there is a separate application for bus booking. The app has a simple payment function and passengers can quickly make a reservation, choosing a boarding date and seat. There are machines at bus stops that allow passengers to check their remaining balance on their transportation cards. In addition, the arrival time and remaining seats of the buses at the bus stop in question are displayed on the electronic display board. Passengers can determine the arrival time of a bus on various transportation applications. In South Korea, public transportation methods and facilities, like buses and railroad stations, receive financial support from the government. Not included in the list are taxis. Some South Koreans argue that taxi drivers should be included in public transportation even if they do not have regular connections due to the nature of taxis. On the other hand, other South Koreans disagree and express their opinions that what is considered the current means of public transportation should be maintained. Public transportation in South Korea lack accommodations for people with disabilities. For buses, there are low-floor buses with low footrest heights, and though they have increased in number compared to the past, they are still lacking. There are some areas where low-floor buses have difficulty running, making people who use them face difficulty when traveling to those areas. For subways, there are elevators and spaces for wheelchairs to help people with disabilities travel. However, these places are often crowded and used by other passengers as well. Even for taxis, people with disabilities must reserve priorly to ride a taxi, and even then, usually have to wait a long time before it arrives. The lack of accommodations in the transportation system also has a social effect, as it has affected the number of people with disabilities who leave their homes to travel. Education in South Korea is provided by both public schools and private schools with government funding available for both. South Korea is known for its high academic performance in reading, mathematics, and science, consistently ranking above the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, average. South Korean education sits at 9th place in the world. Higher education is highly valued. People believe doing well in school helps them move up in society and have better jobs. The education system in South Korea is known for being very strict and competitive. Students are expected to get into top universities, especially the SKY universities, Seoul National University, Korea University, and Yonsei University. This focus has helped the economy grow and made many people well educated, but it has also been criticized for stopping creativity, causing mental health problems, and not matching students' skills with available jobs. The strong pressure and focus on doing well in school have started debates about changing the system. People are worried about putting too much importance on university education, looking down on vocational careers, and how competition affects students' well-being. The number of private kindergartens has increased as a result of more women entering the workforce. Growth in the number of nuclear families in which a grandparent is often unavailable to take care of children, and the view that kindergarten might give children an edge in later educational competition. Many students in Korea start kindergarten at the Western age of 3. They continue to study in kindergarten for 3 or 4 years, before starting their formal education in grade 1 of primary school. Many private kindergartens offer classes in English to give students a head start in the mandatory English education they will receive later in public school. Elementary schools consists of grades 1 to 6, age 8 to age 13 in Korean years, 7 to 12 in Western years. The South Korean government changed its name to the current form from Citizens School. In elementary school, students learn the following subjects. The curriculum differs from grades 1 to 2 to grades 3 to 6. In 2023, the Korean Ministry of Education announced a new policy. Therefore, mobile phone use during class is prohibited in elementary, middle, and high schools except for emergencies. If a student uses a mobile phone during class, the teacher may confiscate it. In addition, acts of sending a student who disrupts class out of the classroom or physically restraining them are also recognized as legitimate discipline. But corporal punishment is still prohibited in schools. To this day, In South Korea, the grade of a student is reset as the student progresses through elementary, middle and high school. To differentiate the grades between students, one would often state the grade based on the level of education she is in. For example, a student in the first year of middle school would be referred to as first grade in middle school. Middle schools are called Yeonghakgyo in Korean, which literally means middle school. High schools are called Godunghakgyo in Korean, literally meaning high school. Middle schools in South Korea consist of 3 grades. Most students enter at age 12 and graduate at age 14 or 15. These 3 grades correspond roughly to grades 7 to 9 in the North American system and years 8 to 10 in the English system. Middle school in South Korea marks a considerable shift from primary school, with students expected to take their studies much more seriously. At most middle schools, there used to be many rules on uniforms and haircuts, although now only uniforms remain partially enforced. And education stress is highly increased. High schools in South Korea teach students for 3 years, from first grade, age 15 to 16, to third grade, age 17 to 18. And students commonly graduate at age 17 or 18. High school students are commonly expected to study increasingly long hours each year moving toward graduation. To become competitive and enter extremely attractive universities in Korea, many high school students wake and leave home in the morning at 5 a.m. South Korea had a strong vocational education system that shattered due to the Korean War and the economic collapse following the war. The vocational education system was thereafter rebuilt. For students not desiring to enter university, vocational high schools specializing in fields such as technology, agriculture, or finance are available. Around 20% of high school students are in vocational high schools. Higher education in South Korea is provided primarily by universities, colleges, and various other research institutions. Health. South Korea has a universal healthcare system. According to the Healthcare Index ranking, it has the world's best healthcare system as of 2021. Suicide in South Korea is the 10th highest in the world according to the World Health Organization, WHO, as well as the highest suicide rate in the OECD. South Korean hospitals have advanced medical equipment and facilities readily available, ranking 4th for MRI units per capita and 6th for CT scanners per capita in the OECD. It also had the OECD's second largest number of hospital beds per 1,000 people at 9.56 beds. Life expectancy has been rising rapidly in South Korea. It also has the 3rd highest health-adjusted life expectancy in the world. In the 2024 World Index of Healthcare Innovation, South Korea achieved an overall ranking of 24th, a decline from 18th in 2022. The country held steady in the areas of fiscal sustainability, quality, and science and technology, consistent with its performance in previous years. South Korea does well in controlling chronic disease and is well prepared to face pandemics, but faces mismatches in healthcare resources. For example, South Korea has a shortage of primary care physicians relative to other countries in the index, but also has a large unused capacity at hospitals. South Korea fell 4 spots in its ranking in the category of choice to 18th. Given the single-payer plan's low actuarial value, South Korea could achieve better health outcomes and open up access to new treatments if other innovative plan designs were allowed to operate. South Korea achieved a ranking of 15th in quality. The country experienced a decline in other areas. Its ranking in pandemic preparedness and response declined to 11th, and its patient-centered care ranking dropped from 17th to 25th. Its infrastructure ranking remained at 31st, in part because the country is wasting excess hospital capacity but also lacks enough primary care doctors. Conversely, South Korea excelled in disease prevention, securing an impressive second place due to low hospital admission rates and the best cancer survival scores in the index. South Korea's rank in choice fell from 14th in 2022 to 18th in 2024. South Korea ranked 8th in freedom to choose healthcare services. But its single-payer system places higher out-of-pocket expenses on residents to fund expensive drugs and procedures, restricting access to new treatments. 23rd. These restrictions result in South Korea having some of the highest out-of-pocket as well as household catastrophic levels of health spending of any country in the index. Ranking South Korea 30th in affordability of health coverage. South Korea is ranked 24th overall in science and technology, marking its lowest placement across the four measured dimensions. Specifically, the country has struggled in advancing medical innovation, placing it 19th in medical advances and 28th in scientific discoveries. Despite these challenges, South Korea performs better in integrating digital technology in healthcare, achieving an 11th place ranking in health digitization. South Korea finished in the 22nd position in fiscal sustainability, bolstered by its robust economy which earned it a score of 16th in national solvency. However, the increasing cost of medical care over the past decade has led to a lower ranking of 32nd in growth in public health spending. Overall, South Korea's public healthcare spending stands above the median, ranking 18th. Sport. South Korea has traditional sports of its own, as well as sports from different cultures and countries. Taekwondo. A popular martial sport is often claimed to have historical origins on the Korean peninsula with origins said to have been traced as far back as the 1st century BCE. The name Taekwondo literally means way of foot and fist. Although the modern emphasis lies on the kicks, this may be a way to help legitimize the sport's connection to the traditional practice called Taekyon, which originated in Korea during the Goguryeo period in the 4th century. Taekyon uses hands and feet as well as any part of the body, though only open feet and open hands are allowed during competitions. The motions are smoother and more curvilinear than in Taekwondo, although both disciplines start with the sound TAE in English. There is no relationship. Although there is much controversy regarding the historical origins of many martial disciplines in South Korea, there is little question that Koreanized or traditional in origin, Korean martial arts and sports have enjoyed considerable success. Football and baseball have traditionally been regarded as the most popular sports in Korea. A 2021 poll showed that a plurality of 25% of South Korean sports fans identified football as their favorite sport, with baseball ranked second at 18.8% of respondents. However, the polling did not indicate the extent to which respondents follow both sports. Baseball was introduced in 1905 by American missionaries. The American missionaries' goal was to use baseball to spread muscular Christianity. Professional Baseball League, KBO League started in 1982 with 6 teams, now 10 teams. Korea won the gold medal in baseball at the 2008 Olympic Games. Korea is also a regular participant in the World Baseball Classic, and runner-up in 2009 and third in 2006. Korea is considered one of the best baseball countries in international competition. In the early 1900s, football became an integral piece of Korean nationalism. It also became a symbol for the rivalry between Pyongyang and Seoul at the time. The people of Pyongyang used it to demonstrate their modernity and to resist the centralized power of Seoul. Now Seoul and Busan. Seoul and Daegu have similar rivalry that resist the centralized power of Seoul. The national football team became the first team in the Asian Football Confederation, AFC, to reach the FIFA World Cup semi-finals in the 2002 FIFA World Cup, which South Korea jointly hosted with Japan. At the 2012 Summer Olympics, South Korea's U-23 team won the bronze medal in men's football. Korea has rival relationships with various countries. As for football, Japan and Iran are South Korea's rivals. Because of historical problems, Japan is the main rival of Korea. Cerium wrestling is enlisted on UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage lists and one of popular sport in South Korea. Cerium is originated in Agricultural Society of Korea to celebrate Dano, Chuseok and Seolnal. Korea Cerium Association is a governing body of Cerium. Ice skating is also a very popular sport which sees kids as young as 5 years old starting to compete and getting private coaching on a daily basis. National leadership deliberately focused on short-track speed skating as an area of focus to do well in the Olympics and thus encouraged a culture of skating. South Korea has dominated archery at the international level, as well as consistently strong performances in other international competitions. Archery is a very successful sport in South Korea's Olympic history. Esports have found a strong home in South Korea, StarCraft professional competition being the largest example of these. Major corporate-sponsored teams and leagues have formed in esports, the most notable leagues being the OnGameNet Star League, the MBC Game StarCraft League, Retired, and Pro League. Some television stations are devoted to broadcasting electronic sports, such as OnGameNet, GOM-TV, and formerly MBC Game. Another sport gaining popularity in South Korea is basketball. Professional basketball teams compete in the Korean Basketball League. The South Korea national basketball team won a record number of 25 medals at the Asian Basketball Championship. Volleyball is very popular in South Korea, with the V-League being a professional league with men's and women's teams. In recent years, South Korea has performed well in fencing, winning many medals from recent Olympic Games and World Championships. Field hockey is one of the sports where South Korea have achieved significant success on the continental level. The South Korea national lacrosse team has qualified for the World Lacrosse Championship 5 consecutive times, 2002 to 2018. South Korea has sent national teams to the Under-19 World Lacrosse Championships. Golf is very popular in South Korea. It is often thought that this is linked to the fact that golf is considered a status symbol.